Hi everyone, welcome to the class, the seventh class of the unit Biomolecules. In our previous class, we completed with the building blocks of proteins, amino acids, and we learned the detailed classification of the amino acids. So you can just recall all those informations. Now, with the continuation of that, so we'll learn now how exactly the proteins are taken as a biomolecule. As we are all known that proteins, so with their prime importance in the living system or with the primary importance, so they play a very vital role in the normal cell growth as well as the maintenance. So not only that, so the overall entire growth of the individual and the maintenance so is depending on the proteins. Such proteins, how it is formed structurally, will try to relate so with few concepts. So as per the NCERT syllabus now. Now, if you take, so already we learned that so proteins are so the polypeptides of the amino acids. So here amino acids so will be building the protein. So how exactly it builds? So that we'll try to understand. So by understanding the concept of peptide first. So what is a peptide? We'll try to understand. Then we'll go for learning the structure of proteins. Now, if we take two amino acids, now we know that generally amino acids are represented with their L configuration by writing the amino group on left hand side and the carboxylic group. So I will split the carboxylic group as COOH like this, carbonyl group and hydroxyl group. Now, what is the significance of writing the NH2 on left hand side? You will find the right information when you are learning peptides information. Now another amino acid NH2 group, I will try to split and write. So by showing the bonds to the nitrogen, it is NH2 group. Now when two amino acids interact, so when they are forming a particular protein, so we'll start with a simple two amino acids when they are joined. So what happens in their interaction? Now in the interaction, so the hydroxyl group of the carboxylic group of one amino acid and the hydrogen of the amine nitrogen, so of the another amino acid, will interact, and in their interaction a simple water molecule gets eliminated. In the process, a simple water molecule is going to be eliminated in the process. So the interaction of COOH and the hydrogen of the NH2 group. So with the loss of this H2O, the carbonyl carbon and the amine nitrogen, so they bonded with each other. So thereby the two amino acids will join together and the resultant bond which is formed is called as an amide bond or a peptide bond. That is the bond which is formed by the interaction of the carboxylic group of one amino acid and the amine group of another amino acid is called as a peptide bond. So we can indicate this bond, whatever it is formed now, the CONH bond. So between the two amino acids with the interaction of its COOH group and NH2 group, so is called as a peptide bond, or it is also called as amide bond. It's called as peptide bond or amide bond. So the resultant molecule which is formed or the resultant product formed is called as peptide. But there are various names to identify the amino acids in it as well as the number of peptide bonds present in it. That we'll try to understand. Now we'll try to define what is a peptide bond now exactly. If we take peptide bond or amide bond information, so just with the equation part you can understand will be important for 2 mark question. So with the support of equation, so you can explain what is a peptide bond is. Now what is a peptide bond? So peptide bond or amide bond is formed by the interaction of COOH of one amino acid and amine group of another amino acid with the removal of a simple molecule, that is water. The bond which is formed by the interaction of carboxylic group of one amino acid and amine group of another amino acid with the removal of H2O molecule is called as a peptide bond or amide bond. So hope the information is clear. So try to understand it clearly and support with a simple structure. So the interaction of the carboxylic group of one amino acid and amine group of another amino acid with the removal of a water molecule is called as a peptide bond or amide bond. So such a bond which is formed by the interaction of these two groups with the elimination of a simple water molecule is referred to as a peptide bond. Here they may ask with example explain the peptide bond formation. So if the first amino acid will take it as glycine with R group as H, and we'll take the second amino acid as alanine, so where the R group as CH3. Now in the interaction, so here you can write H and here you can write CH3, and the formed peptide is called as glycylalanine. So glycylalanine is a peptide which is obtained by the interaction of the carboxylic group of glycine with amine group of alanine. So in this way you can take any example. So the NCERT preferred example is this. So either between two glycine you can show, or between two alanine you can show, or between one glycine and one alanine you can represent how a peptide bond is formed. So prefer replace the R group by the respective hydrogen or CH3. So for glycine and alanine. So with the replacement of that, so whatever the example you are taking, so that will be the respective peptide formed in the process. Now, what is the significance of this peptide to relate for proteins? So if we take any protein, so generally all the proteins, so there are few exceptions here again. So majority of all the proteins will have nearly 1000 amino acids or more than 100 amino acids in general. In general, at least more than 100 amino acids you are going to see in a given protein. But there are some exceptions with high level folding with fewer amino acids. Also, they act as proteins. Such a rare example, you can take insulin. With 51 amino acids, it acts as protein. But the molecular mass is very important. Generally, proteins will have a molecular mass of 10,000 unified mass. That is little basic information regarding to that. Now, if we concentrate few more information regarding the peptide bonds. Now, generally, so if you may get 1 mark question about the peptide information. If you take any given N peptide, if you take the name of any given N peptide, now what is that N? So we'll try to observe. Now, if you take that given N peptide, so we'll consider that N stands for the prefix in the name of the peptide. So example, we'll take a simple peptide starts by the combination of two amino acids. It is dipeptide. So here, whatever the prefix value we are going to observe in the name of the respective peptide. So the significance of that peptide information, if you concentrate, here the di is the prefix. So hence the N value here it is 2. So this N value or the prefix value, this di is the prefix in the name. So this di value or the N value, so you are going to use for amino acid information. Hence the prefix value gives the information of, so it gives the information of number of amino acids present in the protein. It gives the information of number of amino acids present in a protein. As it is a dipeptide, N is equal to 2. So there are 2 amino acids in the respective peptide, that is dipeptide. Similarly, if you take tripeptide, will have 3 amino acids. Tetrapeptide will have 4 amino acids. Pentapeptide will have 5 amino acid. Like that, you can think with any name. The prefix value of the name of the peptide will give direct information of amino acids combined in the peptide formation there. Then one more significant information. So if we take N minus 1, so the information of N minus 1, if we take here, N minus 1 will give the information that, so the total number of the peptide bonds present there. So N minus 1 will give the number of peptide bonds present in the given peptide. So how many peptide bonds are present? We can able to use the formula N minus 1, where N represents the prefix value in the name. So the same example, dipeptide, if you take, N value is 2, hence 2 minus 1, that is equal to 1. Hence, there is one peptide bond seen in a dipeptide. So this is a very important competitive exam question, as well as a 1 mark question from the unit. So they will give a particular name of a peptide and they will ask you to write what is the number of peptide bonds present in the given peptide, or what is the number of amino acids present in the given peptide. Hope this information is clear. Now the same we'll try to understand. So with few more peptide names, what are the amino acids present in that and what are the peptide bonds present in it. Now if we take the name of the peptide and what are the amino acids present in it and what are the number of peptide bonds in it. Now we'll take number of amino acids to indicate N value. So where N is the prefix of the name of the peptide, and N minus 1 so will be used to indicate its peptide bonds. We'll try to observe few simple examples. So we'll take the starting one, so which is a dipeptide. So here, so whatever the prefix is there, so that will be taken as N. As for dipeptides, N value is 2. So hence there are 2 amino acids are present in it. And as it contains 2 minus 1, that is one peptide bond in it. One peptide bond is present in a dipeptide. So similarly, you can take many examples. We'll take few more. So if a tripeptide is taken, so you can recall. So here the N value is 3. As the N value is 3, so there are 3 amino acids in it, and 3 minus 1, so it contains 2 peptide bonds. It contains 2 peptide bonds. So similarly, you can take n number of examples. We will take few more. So if it is a tetrapeptide, if it is a tetrapeptide, so it indicates, so N value is 4, hence it is 4 amino acids are present. Then the N value is 4, 4 minus 1, it is 3 peptide bonds are present. We'll take few more examples. Pentapeptide. So as the name prefix penta indicates that, so it is 5. So hence the number of amino acids present is 5 amino acids, and the number of peptide bonds present is 5 minus 1. So that is 4 peptide bonds. Like this. Whatever the peptides are given, if it is a N peptide with the name, so then the number of amino acids present is N amino acids, and number of peptide bonds present is N minus 1 peptide bonds. If it is that N prefix value, for example, decapeptide, if it is taken, so N value is 10, hence 10 amino acids, 10 minus 1 will be 9 peptide bonds. Like this, the prefix value is very important in relating the amino acids present in the peptide and the number of bonds present in it. Like this, by knowing the N value, we can able to identify the amino acids present in them as well as the number of peptide bonds. Now generally a protein so will have more than 100 amino acids generally, so with a molecular mass of 10,000 unified mass. So hence, so all these peptides, so with such a huge number of amino acids, they are all called as polypeptides. So the many amino acids joined with n number of peptide bonds, so it is referred to as polypeptides. Such a polypeptide information is very much helpful for us in knowing the structure of proteins. Now, there are some exceptions, as already I have told. So there are few proteins with less than this 100 amino acids will also act as proteins. Such example, you can take insulin. Now we'll try to learn what are the different structural levels of proteins. So structurally, the protein study is classified under 4 different headings. So the first level of structure is called as primary structure of protein. So 1-degree structure, that is the primary structure of protein. So next, secondary structure of protein. Then tertiary structure of protein. And next, it is quaternary structure of protein. Now it's very simple to understand. So what happens here? So in the increasing. Now just assume that, so the spherical shaped structure what I am writing, so is an amino acid. So each amino acid in the growing chain so will be linked by peptide bonds. So assume that like this, there are n number of amino acids are keep on joining in a polypeptide. Now, what happens to such polypeptide chain? So if it is keep on growing in its length. Now such a polypeptide, so once it is growing, so So whatever the growing chain is there, it cannot able to accommodate the space. Hence, it will undergo the coiling. Now, before its coiling, now whatever the sequence of amino acid is present in a polypeptide chain of a protein, so is called as its primary structure. So that we'll try to observe as the first information. The primary structure of the protein so will give the sequence of amino acids present in a given polypeptide chain. Now, so in a given protein, there may be one polypeptide chain or more than one polypeptide chain. Either it may contain one polypeptide chain or more than one polypeptide chain. So for each polypeptide chain, so the structural level will go till tertiary level. Then the assembly of the functional unit takes place that we'll try to discuss under each level. Now, sequence of amino acid means what? So sequence refers to the ordered arrangement of amino acid. Now, if suppose one amino acid is there, methionine, we know that the initiator codon AUG, the three nucleotides, so will form a genetic code that AUG is going to synthesize the amino acid methionine. Like this, triplet codons will code for each amino acid to synthesize. Then after it is synthesized, each amino acid is going to be joined by the peptide bonds. Now after first amino acid, there will be some another amino acids as second. After that, the another one as third. Like this, there is an ordered arrangement of amino acids in a peptide chain. Now what is that sequence of the amino acid present in a polypeptide chain is referred to as primary structure. So hence, in the primary structure, so we are going to concentrate on the peptide bonds, and through this peptide bond linkage, so what are all the sequence of amino acids are present, so we are going to study. So such a structural level is referred to as primary structure of protein. So now the next one about the secondary structure. Now as the polypeptide chain grows, what happens? So the polypeptide chain cannot present in a linear form. It will undergo coiling. So hence, so the coiling of the primary structure will lead to a secondary structure. The coiling of the polypeptide chain so leads to secondary structure in two ways. So one is called as alpha helix and another one is called as beta pleated sheets. So alpha helix and beta pleated sheets are the secondary structures which is formed by the polypeptide chain. That means once the growing polypeptide chain is taken, so for example, so if you assume this is a linear polypeptide chain which is present, so as it is growing, just to assume, so we'll take this as a given polypeptide chain. So as it is growing, so it will undergo a coiling. Either it will undergo coiling or will form a pleated sheet-like arrangement that we'll try to observe what happens. So either in a parallel or in anti-parallel arrangement, so we are going to see the respective coiling. So such a particular coiling is going to yield the secondary structures. So this is beyond the scope of study here. So as though it is, so what it is important, we'll try to concentrate. Now just observe what happens during this particular information. Just will take with us. I will just conclude. So in the tertiary structure, what happens? Whatever the growing polypeptide chain is there will undergo high level of coiling. As a result of its coiling, so the subunit form, so which is stabilized by formation of hydrogen bond, electrostatic force of attraction, and van der Waals forces of attraction. So it will undergo high level of coiling. As a result of that, so these additional forces are stabilizing that coiled structure, and such a coiled structure is called as subunit. Whereas if we take, so the next level, the quaternary level, that is the quaternary structure of protein. So if a polypeptide containing protein, if we take, so each protein will have polypeptide chain. If it is having only one, so tertiary level of protein folding will take place in that, and that is the final active state for that protein. Whereas if a protein has more than one polypeptide chain, what happens? Each such polypeptide chain will form this kind of high level of folding, and each such subunits will functionally assemble to form a quaternary structure. For example, in hemoglobin, we have four subunits. So those four subunits, so it is 2 alpha and 2 beta like structures. So those four subunits, so they are joined. So with the help of the iron as a cofactor through porphyrin ring like structure. So it is going to form a structural and functional hemoglobin protein. So like this, each proteins will undergo till tertiary level. But if a protein has more than one polypeptide chain, so will undergo a quaternary structure to form. So this is how a protein structure can be learned. So in the primary, peptide bond is important. In the secondary structure, so the structure is stabilized through formation of hydrogen bonds, either in helix or in beta plated sheet. In the tertiary structure, during this high level of coiling, hydrogen bond or electrostatic force of attraction between the acidic groups and basic group, van der Waals forces between the polar groups, or between polar non-polar groups, or between non-polar groups, and in the quaternary structure, the functional assembly. So all these forces are going to stabilize the structures. So this is in brief what are the different levels of structurals for the protein to understand. Now we can just observe how the helix is going to take place. Now if you consider a polypeptide chain, with the growing polypeptide chain will undergo a right-handed coiling, and in the coiling the CO and NH groups which are coming in contact, so between those particular CO and NH, so we are going to observe the formation of the polypeptide, that is between the polypeptide chain. So the formation of hydrogen bonds here. So if you are observing these dotted lines, whatever it is represented through dotted lines here, it is the formation of hydrogen bonds. So these hydrogen bonds are making the twist to present as such. Now if we take the beta plated sheets, so whatever the running chains like this, so between the two running chains, so wherever the CO and NH groups approach nearer, so near vicinity, the hydrogen bonds are formed. So again, these dotted lines showed, so it is the formation of hydrogen bonds, so between the running chain. So in the form of plated sheet, so it is going to happen. I can observe all the four levels. So assume this is a polypeptide chain, the primary structure, the sequence of various amino acids in this. So assume each of this colored represents one amino acid. So once the growing of the polypeptide chain is there, so it will undergo a right-handed coiling, or so it will undergo a beta plated sheet. Here a coil-like arrangement it is shown. Through hydrogen bonds, the secondary structure will stabilize. As the polypeptide chain keeps on growing, so that will undergo more level of coiling, that is high level of coiling through electrostatic force of attraction, hydrogen bonds, as well as so the van der Waals forces of interaction. So this will give the stability. So in the quaternary, so whatever such tertiary level of subunits are formed, so they all will undergo a functional assembly. So they all functionally assemble together to give a functional protein in the formation. So again, one more, the same similar way, assume a polypeptide chain sequence. So the twisting as secondary structure, high level of coiling as tertiary structure, many such subunits join to form a quaternary structure for a protein. Now this explains all the four levels of structures of protein. Now, by learning this, we'll try to understand the classification of protein. The two simple classification we'll learn. So then we'll end with the protein concept by understanding what is denaturation. We'll try to observe the two simple classification of protein. So it is fibrous protein and globular protein. So once a polypeptide chain of a given protein is taken, so if the polypeptide chain runs in parallel, if the given polypeptide chain of the protein, so if it is run in parallel direction, and as a result of its parallel running, so if it is held with the hydrogen bonds and disulfide linkages, so such a particular structure of the polypeptide chain running in parallel way through stabilization with hydrogen bonds and disulfide linkage, so will form fiber-like structure. It results in a fiber-like structure. Such proteins are called as fibrous protein. So due to their fiber-like structure, these proteins are called as fibrous protein. What are fibrous proteins? So these are the fiber-like structures, so which is formed so when a polypeptide chain runs in parallel direction and stabilized through the formation of hydrogen bond and disulfide linkages is called as a fibrous protein. Now, as a result of this particular fiber-like structure, so these proteins, so they are water insoluble. So fibrous protein, if you take anything, so they are remain insoluble in the water. So, and the best examples for this fibrous protein you can remember. So this is oftenly asked 1 mark and 2 mark question. So fibrous protein, the best example you can remember is keratin. So keratin, I think everyone knows, it is a protein present in our hair. So it is hair root protein, or the protein which is present in hair root, nails, claws, feathers, etc. So the respective protein responsible for our hair growth, you can think it is the keratin is the protein. So which is an example of fibrous protein. That means this polypeptide chain in the keratin will run in a parallel direction, and through hydrogen bond and disulfide linkage, it will undergo coiling to form a fiber-like structure. Similarly, if we take globular proteins, we can remember one more example here, which is very important again. I think everyone knows myosin. Do you know what is myosin? So myosin is a protein which is present in our muscle cells. So whatever the protein present in the muscles is called as myosin. Muscle protein is myosin. These two are the best examples for the fibrous to understand. Whereas what are globular proteins they relate? So when a polypeptide chain, if it grows, and during its growing, if it forms a spherical shape, so due to the coiling, if the polypeptide chain forms a coiled structure, so then in that spherical shaped coil, so it will be water soluble component, and such proteins are called as globular proteins. So in the globular protein, what happens? So the polypeptide chain so will undergo coiling, and as a result of its coiling, so it will form a spherical shape. So such a spherical shape of the polypeptide chain which is formed as a result of coiling is called as globular protein, and such globular proteins they remain soluble in water as they are water soluble. The best example for globular proteins is you can take egg albumin or ovalbumin. You can take albumin or egg albumin. The egg protein albumin is the best example, and you can take hemoglobin. You can take myoglobin. Like this, many examples you can think for globular in nature. Those proteins soluble in water, they are Globular, those proteins which are insoluble in water, they are fibrous. So it is due to their structural formation, they gain the name fibrous and globular. As the spherical shape which is formed is called as a globule-like arrangement, it is called as globular protein. So as it is forming a fiber-like structure, so it is called as fibrous protein. So hence the structural related classification here is mentioned. There are many levels of classification of proteins, so that you may learn in your higher classes. That is in your higher education, if you are taking with the life science courses. So you will going to learn about the proteins in detail. So with this basic information of proteins, so now we'll try to understand the last concept of proteins and one more important biomolecule, so which is proteinaceous in nature, that is enzymes. That last concept, so we'll try to conclude in our next class. So thank you.